All right, we're on. And so tonight, I think it's mostly tonight for most of us. Um, we're talking about the new earth and the new children and what they're calling in, what we're also calling in to, walk through, usher into the new earth. So I thought Kara, I mean, it just like flowed. It was like, oh, I know who'd be the perfect guest. It's Kara, because you're living it, you're doing it. And I know it's not always easy because, like you said, it's your children. Teaching your children, it's a whole nother art, right?
Totally.
And I like what you do. We did a quick Zoom last week too, and I saw the boys and just the way that you interact with them, it is very different as far as like not really answering for them, but really like giving them the space to answer in that space. So
Hmm.
anyway, if you could just share a little bit about yourself first, like your background, and then go into what you're doing today with the boys, and also like like what you just did, like little wisdom, little nuggets that like Logan, or it's probably mostly Logan. I'm not sure if Johnny's really saying much right now, but yeah,
Yep.
share your life and then, go for it.
Yeah. So I grew up in Massachusetts, of all places. I firmly believe everything happens for a reason. And to some degree, yeah, it must have been a chosen experience being born and raised in a place like that. Because what are the chances? I mean, the East Coast in general, but Massachusetts, specific to education, okay? We're talking the state where everybody's like, oh, it's one of the best in the country, no messing around. Everybody's like, born and raised that way to follow that path. You go through all the years of school for the purpose of getting into college to be something. And it would be so rare for someone to question that path. And the only people who did, surprisingly enough, were the kids that either joined the military, or maybe some of them did they got in on a trade on some level or something. But I'm telling you, the statistics at my high school, it was probably like 90% of us that went right from high school right into college. So there wasn't much room, the way growing up, the way that I did, for thinking for yourself. It was like right off the bat, you're in school and you just go. And so for me, I was super sensitive. It was easier for me to just internalize and just go back in my turtle shell and kind of just be an observer and not be seen. That was honestly the path for me. That was safest, which breaks my heart for my inner child, but at the same time, it was purposeful. It played a role. And but luckily it was when I got into college, right? And everybody's like, oh, what are you gonna do? Everybody asks this of kids, which is so funny. I have a story about that, when I just realized how flawed the question is. What do you want to be when you grow up? I heard somebody ask that to Logan the other day. And what was Logan's response? That was like, couldn't be more perfect. He goes, a kid. And I was in the background like, oh man, I must be doing something right. Enough to, maybe I'm just leaving him alone enough to be who he is. Like maybe it's as simple as that sometimes. But yeah, that was not my childhood though. And I don't knock my parents. They did the best they could. And I had a great childhood. We did some of the fun things, going camping and whatnot, but it was, you followed this path over here in Massachusetts, and that was okay. But until I got to college, because up until that point, me in school, it was mostly like a suffering in silence. Like I wasn't a bad student. I wasn't a good student. I just coasted by under the radar. Don't be seen, don't be heard, don't do too badly, don't do too great. It was like, just get by was like my goal. And I didn't see, I'm like, if I wanted to try hard, it's information that I'm trying to memorize. For what? For what purpose? I did not see, feel, hear, think any purpose in what was being just shown in front of us. All right, memorize it, know it, memorize it, and now you're going to be tested on it. It was just like, as a kid, I knew, I'm like, this world is in a state of absolute suffering. I knew this as a child. And I'm like, I know the answer to this. The problems that humanity face, I know I somehow know the answer. And it's really simple. And it's crazy that nobody knows what this answer is. I knew this as a kid. And now if I were to ponder on that, I'm like, well, what was the answer? And honestly, I think it's as simple as being who we are. And if that's not the lesson that these kids teach every day to anyone who will receive it, that it just by being who they are, that's it. But I mean, they didn't come around till later on in my life. Like I said, when I was in college, things started to change because it was the question of, well, what am I going to do? What do I want in life? What's my purpose and all of that? And like halfway through college was when I was like, okay, well, I know I want to be a teacher on some level. I love working with kids. But it was when I knew it was kids with autism specifically, because I had a couple experience with them working through high school. And so when I heard someone was like, hey, have you ever heard of speech pathology? And I'm like, no, what is that? What do they do? And the second they said, oh, they help usually autistic kids communicate. And I was like, boom, that's the answer. That's it. And for me, when I set my path or my mind to something, there's no messing around. I get it done, even if it was, requiring me 6 more years of school to have to do it. I did whatever it took, because I'm like, my work with those kids at that point, I didn't know why necessarily, but I listened to my heart. I'm like, it's those kids. I want to work with those kids. And somehow I persevered through all of these years through college. And then I had to go to grad school because SLPs need their masters. And it was far from an easy ride because school was never my thing. But at least now I had some purpose. I'm like, it's these kids. I need to be with them. I need to be on their level. And so that was that. When I graduated, I went right into working at a clinic. It was in Massachusetts, and it was more behavior based. So that was an interesting right off the bat experience as to what's going on in this world of autism. And so my position was always as an SLP, though. I worked alongside of BCBAs, ABAs, OTs, the whole collaborative approach, but it was very behavioral at this place. And so let me tell you, the way that I connected with these kids right off the bat, it's this level of acceptance and awareness that I'm like, I see you. I don't want to change you. I want to help you to communicate, to connect with me and to connect with the world. And just in that simple, like harmonious exchange where they were like, oh, we can learn something from her. She'll learn something from us. And bingo, we are co-creating. And it was like right off the bat, these kids and I clicked. People would be like, watch out, going in that room, you're going to get headbutted and thrown through a wall. And I'm like, all right, let's go. Every single time these kids would be like right connected, right there with me. And everybody's like, what is she doing? How is she doing this? How are these kids responding to her like this? And honestly, at the time, I didn't really know until, I had some spiritual awareness that kind of has expanded since then. And, but yeah, it was kind of a rude awakening seeing the behavior side of autism and seeing these kids. I mean, they were running to me. They were running to me for safety from these absolutely, you could tell, I'm getting goosebumps just remembering the feeling. You could tell how much they were suffering and crying out for help. Please stop treating me like this. I am so beyond what you can even imagine. Because, so many were nonverbal, non-speaking rather, and lots and lots of behaviors. Because of that, they don't have any connection, any way of communicating. I would throw myself through a wall as well. So I always understood that, and they knew I understood it. So it was when I got pregnant with Logan, actually. All these things magically go hand in hand. When I was like deep into the world of autism, I was pregnant with Logan. And since then it was like, holy smokes, my intuition is like through the roof. My awareness, my vibration, everything expanded so clearly and rapidly. It was like real magic, if it does exist. I'm telling you, this was it. And it's all through these kids just being who they are. They just hold that vibration. And it's like, how can, I don't know. Some people just totally miss the boat and they don't pick up on anything they have to offer. But clearly everybody on this call knows what I'm talking about. There is so much potential to receive what they are giving when we align ourselves, when we are at that same level of giving and receiving with them. And but when I got pregnant, and I really, at this point, I'm thinking so much more for myself, because I'm thinking about these kids and I'm like, what is truly best for them? And the amount of meetings I sat in, and just all of the assessments and the diagnoses and the treatments, and I was just questioning, I'm like, how are all these pieces actually serving them, if they are? And I mean, it was really, I did so much questioning at this point, and just really started listening to my intuition, because that's number one way to connect with them. Was I was intuitive. That was it. I'm like, all right, I totally can understand where you're coming from. I'm not gonna bombard on your space, and I'm gonna respect you, and I'm gonna honor you, but we'll still have an exchange here, and we'll still learn and teach and connect. And they always understood that. But I could only stay within that setting for so long. It was only a couple years or so. And actually, it was perfect timing. It was like when I went on maternity leave, I'm like, you know what? Wow. Every time I had a baby, it was like, boom, life is changing. So this time it was my job. I'm like, all right, if I go back to work, I will work less and I'll be in a different setting, because this was private practice. So I went into a public school from here, and I was working part-time. And I'm up, right, Laura? I'm like, oh, this gets much better for me. No, I'm so glad I got to see the bits and pieces of what's out there, the settings for them right now. And wow, all eye-opening events for sure. And this time around, it was the same thing. It's how many, my job was predominantly IEP meetings. When these kids, they needed me. And here I am, nope, I got to cancel services again because my day is booked out in IEP meetings, which, don't get me wrong, those can serve a purpose. But remember, this was Massachusetts. We're talking like top notch, like IEPs, like you can't even imagine. We had every accommodation, all the boxes checked at these types of meetings, because this school was like one of the like very wealthy, like well-off towns. They had a 99% graduation rate. So whatever it took to get those kids graduated, it didn't matter if they learned a single thing, they just needed to graduate. So it was like, it was painful. I'd never seen kids, maybe I didn't notice it when I was that young, but I noticed it now, the level of stress and depression and anxiety, the weight of the world on these children. And I'm talking, most of them were autistic that were on my caseload, but I did have some other kids with some language things, and they were all just suffering. Like I couldn't fathom being that young. And I did the same thing, but it felt worse now that the expectations on these kids was even more amplified. And it was like, holy smokes, I could see their potential. And I'm like, there's so much more than this standardized assessment, than this diagnosis, than this IEP. It's all who they are on paper is absolutely nowhere near understanding who they really truly were. And so here we go again. I was pregnant with my second son now. And so I'm thinking about everything like this. And these kids are telling me, some of them wouldn't tell me, but I could just feel the amount of like constriction and imprisonment. And again, these kids were trying to run to me. And the behaviorist, the BCBA sitting next to me at the IEP meetings, telling parents that Kara is Mecca. These kids go to Kara like she is Mecca, like she is that safe haven where they can go to prayer and be super calm and connected. And I'm like, well, thank you for that. Nobody really ever asked me why or how I was doing that. No one really cared. I would have gladly told people, hey, here's a way to connect. And these kids, they appreciate that, because at this point, they don't want to be in school. But here's the worst part, they don't want to be home either. So what are they left with? They got school, just crazy bombardment. Then they go home and it doesn't end. They got their homework, they got their extracurricular activities. These kids were smothered, just completely drowning. And I'm like, if I can offer them 45 minutes a day of some level of peace by connecting with them in the way they deserve, that's what they had. And I was so glad to offer that. But that job didn't last very long either. This was a few years at this job and pregnant with Johnny. After that, well, another big change. There's a pattern here. I'm like, I'm not going back to work. I'm going to focus on myself and my kids. And I'm going to use all my knowledge and my skills for myself and my kids at this point. And, but these kids, my own kids, we're all neurodivergent in this family, if that's what you want to call it. So all that I've learned, all that autism has taught me, oh, bless them, because it helped me understand myself. It helped me understand my kids. And it's a whole new view of the world. This is a whole new world that's being created here, if we allow it, rather than, no, stay in your box. Listen, these are the evolved versions of ourselves. They are not meant to fit in the box created far before they existed. They are meant to blast those boxes wide open and show us what exists beyond the confines of all these little boxes we've created for ourselves. And that's where I'm at. And it was kind of a no-brainer when they said, all right, we'll be unschooling our children. I didn't call it that for a while. I don't really call it that or homeschooling. It's just this kind of in between. It's our own adapted version of it. And it was actually you, Laura, you brought it to my attention when I explained kind of how we do it. And you're like, wow, that's New Earth School right there. And it is. I mean, it's an entirely different approach. We do have some structured time once in a while. We can sit at a table if that allows that day. Today was almost not one of those days, but we did get a little bit of time in. But our days are filled with just learning that comes in that moment, totally naturally, totally incidentally. And this is what's carried me and why being an SLP came so naturally, that it's really embracing those teachable moments that come up, just totally jumping on them, even if it's, learning how to spell is one thing, counting is one thing, but it's these other lessons about like, oh, Logan, did you hear what's going on with the sun today? And oh yeah, he knows what aurora borealis is. Who knew? It's all of those just profound moments that our day looks entirely different than what I've been used to. So, I mean, it was a bit of a shock to get used to, but it's so worth it. It's a whole new way of living and being and allowing them to be who they are and really tuning in and seeing what comes up, because I'm telling you, it's endless. We have endless knowledge and information coming forth through these kids. So why not tune in, see what it's about and what we can do to help.
Can I bring something up? Because a few things that you had shared with me about Logan specifically,
Mhm.
when I think it was last weekend, and he said to you something about you not, I don't know if it was about you or other people, that they don't know who they are, but like he knows who he is. Remember that
Yeah.
that segment, I guess. Can you share about that? I
Yes.
think that's so huge. And yeah, you are definitely living the new earth education right now, which is amazing, because we need to see how people are actually implementing. And I love your story. And I know that everyone here could totally relate to a lot of what you were saying, including myself. So go for it.
I'm so glad. Yeah, that exchange with Logan when he just started asking me one day, does dad know who he is? Does Grammy know who she is? Does our neighbor know who they are? And I did ask him pretty early on, and I said, do you know who you are? And he said, no. And I was saying, well, I think it's important that we ask, who are we? That we even care to know that that's something worth asking. And that's what we can learn as we go. I mean, then that led to the whole other conversation about when we're born and there's the veil and we forget everything about ourselves and everything. And it's this experience. That's why we're here and learning and remembering and experiencing in a body as a spirit. And yeah, he is so hot on that topic still. He's asking me, do they know who they are? Why don't they remember who they are? And it's profound, because he'll ask me that too. And I'll say, I'm starting to remember. I'm remembering. I won't say that I know exactly who and what yet, but I've come a very far way towards that. So yeah, that's been one of my favorite conversations with him so far. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love, because you showed me the segment of you working with Logan today, and maybe I could share it with them later on. Maybe I've got a little group. I'll add you into it as well, if it's okay.
Okay.
You have to think about it because it's on Facebook.
Yeah.
Or they're also on Telegram, so maybe we could just make a
Yeah.
why don't we do
Yeah.
that?
If anyone wanted a sample of kind of what it looks like around here, this was actually like a sit down part of our day, which we had some really great moments, but they thrive when they can be up. I mean, sometimes Logan's circling around the table and I'm talking to him, and that doesn't mean he's not listening and he's not with me. But yeah, it's totally different around here than usual. But I did manage to capture, that was like 20 minutes where we got to sit down and look at the calendar and go over a few things like that. And then we're writing a book together. That's kind of how we bring all of the learning elements into one place right now. So that's been really cool. We'll see what unravels with that. But yeah, if anyone wants to see, we have some footage of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I liked the other day when I was Zooming with you guys, and you had to go do something, and it was just me and Logan pretty much. And Logan's like, where are you, Logan? Like, he's totally talking to me, I mean,
Yep.
he was talking to me for sure, but it was like, he's got all this energy, right? So he's like, he's on the floor, he's up around. I was like, dude, wow, you got a lot of energy. Give me some of that. But
Yep.
he, like you're saying, he's fully aware. Of course, if he was in typical school, oh boy, comes with all of that, the boxes, just saying the boxes and the diagnose, you know what I mean? Just because the kids are different today, and we need to acknowledge exactly what you're saying about how people would say, oh, you're the magnet, you get them the safe haven. But you're right, they never ask, because I've been there too. It's like, but you didn't really want to know how, right? Why would you want to know how? So again, I think it's so fascinating that we're all here. We're all on the same page. And for sure, you're teaching, like, you are the new earth education. And I love that you're not boxing it in either. Like, you're not saying this is the unschooling or, unlearning or whatever you want to call it. Because again, then we're putting out, then it's another box, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I've been calling it, it's a teaching learning method. It's literally both. I said this to you earlier, that it's this constant back and forth exchange, just like what I was talking about working with the autistic kids, that's what it was about, that they could recognize I wanted to learn. I wanted to know about them. I wanted to know what they know, because I knew they knew different. They knew and saw beyond what we can, and I wanted to know. And so same with my kids. I mean, it's that right off the bat, actually, this is one of the most important things probably for parents who are considering something different like this. I was right on that line. It was when I was working and Logan was in daycare for a moment in time. And he was maybe between 2 and 3. Who in their right mind would ever think to ask a 2-year-old a serious question? These autistic kids taught me better. You can do this if you have a feeling that your kid has the capacity to understand a communication exchange about something like this, then go for it. But I knew with Logan that I could ask this. And I said to him, Logan, where do you want to do your learning? Do you want to do it at home or at school? And no hesitation, said right off the bat, at home. And so I said, really? Okay, are you sure? Like, you have some friends there and the teachers are really nice and da da da. Nope, I want to do my learning at home. I asked him this. I didn't even have a plan. I'm like, how are we going to have a kid home? Henry and I were both working. We figured it out because I was only working mornings. So he was able to be home with Henry some days, and Henry's dad, we had family that helped. So it did work out. But at the time, if I had thought about that, like, can I really ask the kid this young this? And how is that going to work, even if he does answer? And I have to honor it. But I did. I was just something I intuitively, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ask him. And since then, this is what I do. I will check in because now he has friends that are older and some of them know how to read or some of them know how to write, or they talk about school. And, there are the kids that do enjoy school and nothing wrong with it. And so I will still check in with them and say, hey, Logan, where do you want to do your learning? Do you want to keep doing your learning at home or do you want to go to school? And there's other schools. We live in Colorado now. So we have nature school. We have all these other natural play-based holistic ones. And I let him know, I'm like, there's these options. And he always says home. And so I've honored that. I've just done my best. And it hasn't been easy by any means, because now I have 3. The baby's 1, Johnny's 3, and Logan's 5. So it's been a little bit of a whirlwind at times, but I wouldn't change a freaking thing. It's been so important, even on our off days where, like, for example, this week I had to keep up with my ASHA, the Speech Hearing Association education credits. I'm keeping my license because just in case if anything, I might do my own thing with speech. And but I'm keeping up with my C's, so I have to do my 30 hours every 3 years and pay my few $100s every few years. I was dealing with that this week, and afterwards I'm like, oh, I spent my time and my energy worrying about that when I should have been sitting with Logan and writing a book or outside playing with the kids. And I have my moments of being hard on myself. Am I doing this right? Am I doing enough? That's the biggest question. But at the end of the day, it's like, holy smokes, the amount, even if it were like one time this week that I had a moment where I sat down with Logan and we had an awesome exchange. I mean, think about how valuable that is versus your kid who just spent how many hours a week? 8 times 5, like 40 hours. I don't even know, a crazy amount of hours in school. Learning what? Learning just your in the box stuff, when it's like, even if I spent 20 minutes a week with my kids talking about the outside of the box stuff, that is significantly more valuable than them having gone and been tortured in a classroom to sit down all day. So I have to think about it that way and know and remind myself, because it's hard on me sometimes. Because, of course, there's family and all these other people who are like, well, what if he wants to be an astronaut? How is he going to achieve that? My mom asked me. And I was like, well, if that is meant to be, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that will be, because Logan is very much like me. When he sets his mind to something, it will happen. And guess what? College is accepting, not that college will be a thing with these kids, I highly doubt it, but colleges have been accepting these unschooled kids and the homeschooled kids because they have more knowledge, they're more well-rounded, they just have much more experience, that colleges are like scooping up these unschooled, homeschooled kids like you wouldn't believe. So anyone who has their doubts of what's my family going to think? What are they going to say? What are my friends going to think? I mean, luckily Colorado, so many people homeschool here, which has been really nice that I'm not a total loony bin over here by myself. But yeah, it's not always easy, but at the end of the day, it is always worth it. And I do my best to pose the questions and helping to make the choices to them. And that's gone pretty well up until now. So I'm going to stick with that. Follow my heart and follow theirs. That's what I try to live by.
Thank you. I had my cat was all over the place on the table. So I was like, just like what you guys are doing, right? With your kids. No
Yep.
different. You've got a dog. If you guys have
Yes.
pets, they're
We
kids.
got the whole nine. Yep.
Anyway.
Arjuna. He
Yeah.
must like the conversation. He fits right in. He gets the kids. He gets it.
Yeah, he totally does. But is it okay for me to open up, for the other moms and their moms
Yep.
to ask you
Definitely.
questions? I know, as you're talking, I was like, oh, that's X. That's, I know you guys can relate. So
Absolutely.
does anybody want to ask Kara a question?
I don't have any questions, but I do have to get off because I have to help my husband out. But I just wanted to say that as a mom of a child with autism, just listening to you talk in general, I almost started crying. It's like, I just wish that every human who interacted with my child was like you, that was so open like that, because thankfully, my child's pretty young. He'll be 6 soon, and that I'm a little more awake to this kind of stuff and doing a lot of unlearning, I'd say, over the last few years since he was diagnosed. But yeah, just for you to know that whatever your path leads to, that it feels so good to know that there are people out there like you that will take that extra step and that care so deeply and see beyond the veil. It's just feels so great. Especially with the child so young, to know that it's possible. A lot of the people my son works with, I've had to sort of unravel that. Like, I know this is what you think this is, but here is like 10 reasons why it's not that way. And it's a lot of work, and it's hard because when they're diagnosed, we rely on these experts and people to tell us what to do, but really, we're the ones saying, actually, here's what you need to do, to connect to my child. Like, it's really simple, actually, So anyway, I just wanted, because I do have to hop off here, but I just want to say thank you. Like, and my God, I wish I could homeschool my child, but yeah, maybe one day. I totally admire you. It's like, it's phenomenal. It's, yeah, amazing, incredible. I have to listen to the recording again, because just everything you said, I just was like, God, I hope my child for the rest of his life encounters people like you, because it gives me hope. You give me hope. So thank you.
Gosh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got tears and goosebumps. Seriously, thank you.
Thank
so
you. Thank you,
glad.
Laura, it's hard for me to get on this call. I have little kids, so she's like, you've got to get on this one. I'm really, really grateful. So thank you so much. She was right.
I'm so glad. Yes.
So thank you.
We'll be in touch. I'll join the group and
I'll download
awesome.
the thing and all the things.
Yeah, we're going to
good.
Telegram on your laptop, and then
Telegram on my laptop. Okay.
I'll
On my
remind you.
laptop, I will. Thank you.
I know you got a lot on your plate, but I knew tonight would be really.
I do.
It would hit home.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
It did. I kept texting my husband, like, I can't, you gotta wait. But now I have to hop off.
I'm so glad you stuck around.
Yeah.
You were here.
Thank
you for all that you said.
Thank you. And Marianne, I'll send the card and the things and all the things.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Bye.
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 So Marianne, it's you. Do you have any comments, or anything that you said that resonates?
Yes, I think the biggest thing that I see is the stress level that the kids are under who are in school. And their bodies are so little, and they're put in that stress mode so young.
Mm-hmm.
And then that leads to fight or flight. So they're constantly in a fight or flight mode for a good portion of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then that leads to fatigue of your body and your bodily systems. And these are children that are so bright that they shouldn't have to be in a fight or flight mode. And people should start to understand that, they're here with, I know their bodies are different. Their bodies are not the same, and they're not equipped to handle the type of indoctrination that, you know, we did. And I mean, whether or not we, you know, part of, I did well in school, but I did well in school really because I was like, I want to get out of where I lived. I lived in, I need to get out of where I don't belong here. So I
Yeah.
need to work as hard as I can to get out.
Yes, you had purpose. If you have
Like
purpose,
it was still a purpose. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It was like, okay, I have to do whatever it takes here so I could just get out. But
Mhm.
I have something to say for the astronaut piece, is that that's exactly what I wanted to be as a child. And when I went to college, I went to college for engineering physics. And when I got in, it was the absolute most boring curriculum you could ever imagine. And I was devastated because I said, this is what I wanted to be. I don't understand. I said, I'm just gonna sit with this. I'm gonna go with the flow. I wound up changing to business. But what I can tell you now is what I know about us multidimensionally and what I know about what the human mind and body can do and how we can travel. That is the best form of any type of aeronautics, astronautics, you know, being an astronaut, that is the best type that I could
yes,
ever have imagined.
I love that.
And and I think the piece of it is what you're giving your child too, is you're allowing him to be in that calm parasympathetic state. And he's allowed to be free. His voice is free.
Mhm.
His body is free. And over time, he's going to develop who I am, like who he is. And the more we teach them, I think the biggest piece too is how to be alone, how to be with him, how to go within, and
Mhm.
also how to be without, you know, how to be with others. It's just such a simple, beautiful thing that so many people these days I see in a lot of the classes that I'm taking, is that they just don't know how to go within or be with themselves, or, you know, have that joy and that love for themselves. And that's what he's going to retain. And there's no love like a mother's love. And that's what he feels all day long. So he's very
Oh
lucky. They're very
my
lucky.
gosh, thank you for all of that. That was so awesome. Yeah, just confirmation. That's it. Yeah, being with ourselves. That's the biggest thing. I'm like, and that's what a lot of autism taught me was, oh my God, look at them. They're so good. They will just sit there in their world and they are good. And sometimes I would do that. I would just sit there with them in their world. And it was like, wow, what a change. It's that change of pace. Honestly, that's what saved me, was really taking a step back from working like that and coming home, and I had no energy for my own kids. It was really tough. And the hustle and bustle of everyday reality life, my kids taught me, slow the heck down and just be with yourself and be with us. And that has been the number one most valuable thing, because so easy to get caught up in it to not even know. But you're so right. I would say, how much of the population has no clue to just sit with themselves and just be? It's really, wow. If everybody did that, I think that would certainly create the new earth just like that.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marianne.
Thank you, Kara. And thank you, Lori.
You're welcome. I love this. I knew that this was going to be so valuable. Again, like, you know, we're all on the same page, and I just feel like how many people would really find value in this kind of conversation, right? Because we always do, right? People that are on the same page. So I see us doing like a round table in the future, not too far away. In the past, would be like
Yeah.
one day, but you know what? Like, I know for sure, like, I definitely want to put this on YouTube and see who resonates with it, because I mean, I can relate to a lot of it. You know, I wasn't typical. I like you, Marianne, where you're like, I just, you know, you kind of just wanted to get over with it so you can go to your next phase, right? But for me,
Mhm.
I think the gift that I got, thank you, Dad, is that because I knew the struggle, you know, it wasn't my passion, and eventually I found my passion, which was not only the kids, but psychology, the mind, and that curious mind, like all the questions. But I just feel like there's so many people that really would appreciate this conversation. So us three, we'll see who else. I'd like to get four of us to talk and then see where it goes from there. And I think it'll help move our purpose forward, because we all have a purpose here, and it's all connected to the new earth. So
I love that
how does that
idea.
sound, you guys?
That would be awesome.
Sounds
I'm in.
amazing.
And that's what we're doing already. This is a total round table. That wasn't the purpose, but I saw it also because it was a way for you to kind of come out and share. Kara, I'm talking to you, just what you are doing with your children and how you were motivated to, right? You didn't see it coming, but you had the gift, when you were doing the speech, and then people recognize that, and then little by little, it sounds like both of you both have where your kids actually helped you get out of the system, even though you're still certified, so to speak. But I know there's a lot of people who could appreciate this conversation. So
Yay.
guys, thank you, Kara, for coming as a guest today. And
Thank you, Lori. That was awesome. I appreciate it.
And Marianne too, with just your expansion, your awareness. I just love where you just went. It was absolutely expansive. And then Lily as a mom, and also a healer, that she was able to just really, God, really just be so thankful for people like you, right? In the system, and seeing the children and her children, because she could see her child, and be hopeful that there are people like you out there. And there are, of course, but we're here to share a new perspective, right? A new perspective in the way we educate our children, and enlighten people on who these children are, then that they're not us. They're not wired like we are wired or were. And they have a lot to teach us, but we also have like a give and take with them as well. So thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So we will see everyone on YouTube.
Yeah, we're going to be famous, like Logan said.
Thank you, Logan and Luke. And I think of Andy.
All the L.
I also think of Andy. I mean, I kept seeing
And
Andy
Andy
in this
too.
conversation too, right? And Ben,
Yes. Andy.
and Ben, what did Ben say to you last week, Marianne, about?
Ben, well, he says a lot of things. He always asks me when I'm going to talk to Lori. When am I going to talk to Lori? Do I need my phone? Do I need my iPad to talk to Lori?
Oh.
And then he said he wants to be homeschooled.
Wow.
He said he wants to be homeschooled. And, I'm figuring out, I'm seeing what the prospects are, or how to do this and how to do it the right way. And I keep asking for guidance.
Boom.
Yeah.
Here you go. It will come.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to close just this part right now, and then we can say goodbye. So, all right.
Okay.